Hello everybody. And hello everyone on the computer. My talk is about developing your own photographic style. My name is Alan Schaller, photographer, known, I guess, for street photography, but I don't really consider myself a street photographer, I'm just a photographer. So it gives me access to lots of different styles. But street photography, or whatever you want to call this stuff that I'm doing, is what I'm going to talk about today. So this is my third talk here at B&H. So thank you to B&H as well for having me. So who in the room has seen my pictures before? Okay, and hopefully online, go click on my website or Instagram, you can have a look. It will save you some, yeah, I've got some explaining to do. But I shoot in a very kind of niche way, I suppose. I photograph in black and white, I photograph people, often in urban environments. And that's about it. You won't really see me shooting food photography or color portraits much. I kind of shoot in this way and that's it. And I want to explain, hopefully, over the course of this talk, how I got to this point, shooting in this style, why I shoot in this style, and why I don't shoot other things, and why I think that's really important if you really want to get really good at photography or be able to have your own style, why it's important to drill the same kind of practice over and over and over again. Because it's very tempting these days to feel like you should, dabble in loads of different things. And it's quite tough to get the balance between experimentation and losing your way in terms of having a style. So this is something that I thought about quite a lot. These pictures are part of my exhibition that's on at the Leica store in Soho, New York, until January 3rd. So if you want to see these non-pixelated and in real life, which is better than on a phone, it'd be great to go see that. So a little bit of background about me. I used to be a musician. Since a young age, I started playing music, and I eventually went to university to study music, and I became a songwriter or a composer. And I was doing stuff for television and for film. And I was so terrified about not earning money in the industry. I really wanted to be a musician. That was my thing. I was like, I'm going to do this. I want to get by doing music. But with that comes fear, and comes, my father, who was, you're going to be poor, you're going to be on the street kind of thing the whole time. Do law or join the family business was the kind of vibe I was getting for most of my teenage years. So I was like, I'm going to prove him wrong. I'm going to do whatever it takes to do this music thing. And so I got into commercial songwriting, which initially was exciting. The first time I heard one of my pieces of music on the television, it was for an insurance advert. I was very, very excited. But 5 years later of doing that, not so much. And I kind of got sucked into this thing where I was writing music for whoever and whatever, and I'd kind of put myself out there as I'll do whatever for, musically. And so I ended up with no style at all. And the agency I was with didn't really, they couldn't place me as like the guitar guy or the guy who writes the dance music or the classical stuff. And there were some people doing that, and they were getting better jobs than me. Anyway, so eventually photography came along, and I had identified my frustration with music and how I had gone down this route, and and the mistakes I'd made. So I thought, at least now I've got a hobby that I really, really enjoy, that fulfills me creatively. So I decided to shoot only how I wanted to shoot, which was in black and white. I get asked, why do you shoot in black and white? I don't really know why it drew me more than other things, but it did. I just enjoyed the work of people like Cartier-Bresson and Sebastião Salgado and all these people who who, by the way, don't really shoot in color, do they? They're pretty dedicated to the way they shoot. And for some reason that switched me on, those kinds of pictures. So I went out and began my mission, which was to go out and shoot some stuff on the street with the intention of just doing what I wanted, which is what I should have been doing with music, to be honest. So a wise man once told me, a few years ago, the biggest brand, he's a fashion photographer, said the biggest brands in the world want to work with artists, not with commercial photographers. And I was like, that sounds really simple, but it makes a lot of sense. You know, they want someone who, you know, not just brands, but you know, whatever, editorial stuff as well. They want a photographer who's got a clear vision, and it's like, okay, we can go to you for this because this is what you live and breathe, kind of thing, rather than, you know, look at my portrait portfolio, my food portfolio, my street portfolio, my wedding portfolio. You know, that just makes you look like you have no idea what you're doing, and you're just trying loads of things, and it's impossible to be brilliant at all those things. And there's nothing wrong with specializing in food photography. You know, I know a guy called David Loftus who does Jamie Oliver's books and a lot of the biggest restaurants in the world, and his stuff's ridiculously cool, and it's just food. You should check out his work. But yeah, speaking to him, I had a lot in common with him. He just does, you know that thing, the food from above shot? I'm pretty sure he pioneered that way back, and everyone does it. But he was doing that ages ago, all these pictures like that, and then released a book, and everyone went mad for it and was like, oh, this is really clever. So that worked for him, and he still does that, which is a good example, I think, of someone who has found their thing and just owns that. So off I went shooting this stuff, and my pictures, by the way, didn't look like this when I began, and that's another thing I'd like to talk about a little bit. I was always shooting in black and white, but it was very low contrast stuff, mainly because I didn't know how to edit. I didn't really understand light, how to use light properly or consistently. Like, I understood the difference between hard light and soft light, but I didn't really know how to manipulate that at will, kind of thing, and how to really see subtle light situations and all that kind of stuff that I've now spent most of my life doing. But I had my goal of trying to achieve pictures that were, you know, that were nice to look at. And I was really inspired by these books from the photographers I told you before, and I kept comparing my work to theirs, and I was like, mine doesn't look like that. There's no contrast in it, I suppose. You know, they look flat and this and that. And slowly, bit by bit by bit by bit, well, I say slowly, I've been a photographer for 5 years, which some people say is not that much time, but I've packed a lot into that 5 years, and I've shot a lot. And it was like I had the right environment around me to allow myself to actually become a photographer, i.e. I was a freelancer already, which meant I could pick and choose the hours. So I actually deliberately chose to cut down my music hours and my earnings in order to shoot street photography, which again my family thought was ridiculous, but it was a decision I could make, and I don't have children, not married or anything, so you know, I had the right conditions to actually go out and start doing this regularly, and doing it regularly is the important thing. You know, like half an hour a day is better than a few hours once a week. It's, you know, keeping the eye always working. And then it's got to the point now where I can't turn it off, which is good and bad. But within the first year, I decided to do a series on the London Underground called Life on the Underground. And for those of you who haven't worked on a photo series before, it's a very important thing to try and do, especially for a street photographer. So why am I saying this? So when you shoot on the street, it's a very random, seemingly random environment, right? Especially if you travel around and you're doing it. But my pictures and other photographers look kind of cohesive together, even though they're taken all over the world and in different times of year and all that kind of thing. So it's like, how does this happen? How can you get a style like that? And I think, this guy chased me down the street after I took it. He woke up. It's like, if you're not shooting a photo series, or if you don't have a direction for your work, an idea of what you want to do and why you're doing it. You're just taking random pictures and hoping that they gel together, right? And I've said this before, it's the equivalent of an author trying to write a book by coming up with really clever sentences, one by one, and stitching them together, and it doesn't actually make any sense. So, you know, like, she looked into his eyes and remembered the way they were before. Sentence one. You think, oh, that's a lovely sentence. I'm going to enjoy this book. Sentence number two, the meteorite crashed into the sea and a huge tidal wave engulfed the earth. Oh, okay, that's a nice sentence, but it doesn't make any sense to the first one. Anyway, most people's Instagram pages and websites look like that to me, where it's like, okay, I see what you did there. That's pretty cool, but you know, this next picture might as well be a whole nother photographer. So it doesn't make any sense, and it's really jarring. And it's the thing that I think people switch onto the most is when they see a picture they like, and then they go and research the person who made it, and then they see more stuff like that than they like, then they actually get invested in it. And they're like, oh, good. You know, if someone sees that picture of mine, or that one, or that one, and then the next thing they see is me with a, you know, my cat on my sofa, or I don't have a cat, or you know, a picture of you know, a girl with really blue eyes. You know, they're going to be like, oh, whatever, and carry on scrolling endlessly through Instagram or whatever social media app you choose. So I think it's important to have a direction so that you can actually repeat stuff and have something more to say than, you know, I'm just taking pictures of people on the street and I don't know why. Or I like shooting with shadows. You know, only photographers enjoy talking about shadows. Most people don't. You know, and we forget that. It's quite, you know, try submit. I've seen people submitting bodies of work to an editor at a magazine, being like, "This is my series on silhouettes." You know, okay. You know, it doesn't make any sense to a non-photographer. You know, like, what's so great about silhouettes? Oh, they're great. You should try them. You know, so, but if you shoot a series called New York by Night, and you use loads of silhouettes as part of it, and you show the city in a different way, you don't have to talk about the silhouettes. People will see it, and you should use those things as stylistic tools to make yourself look good when you're presenting to people like this. And, you know, that's the important distinction to make, is not getting too lost in the... Most people think that the term shooting for other photographers, or getting too bogged down with the technical stuff and the camera stuff, that's to do with like the lenses and the camera side of it, but it's not. It's also the techniques that photographers use. That can become something that people obsess about a little bit too much, and then make their photography about that, and then you end up with something that only photographers are going to like or care about. And you know, I guarantee you, someone like Cartier-Bresson didn't go out with the intention of shooting loads of shadows. You know, he went out to execute a vision of his that he had, and those things happen to go along the way. Does this make sense? Yeah. So yeah. So developing your style is the most important thing. Is having an idea of what your style is, first of all, or having the kind of guts to pick one and go, I'm going to do this for 6 months, and go and running with that. If you don't do that, and you know, good luck. Shoot everything. You know, I mean, if you think of Matisse, you have an idea of what a Matisse looks like, right? Or a Picasso, or a I don't know. You think of Gordon Ramsay, you know what he does. You know, he's not a semi-pro golfer as well. No, he's a chef. You know, these people all do their things, and that is what they do, and that's it. And it's important to, you know, it sounds really obvious, but I think when it's applied to something like this, like photography, it just gets lost because there's so much you can do. So I like to limit myself as much as possible, and I shoot in this aesthetic. The tools I use to shoot with are also hugely important. People say, you know, you get some hipsters who say stuff like, "Oh, your camera doesn't matter, man." You know, and it's like, say that to an F1 driver, that their car doesn't matter. So it does. It helps to be a good driver, but you know, if you have a bad car, you're not going to win. And I think it's, if you get the nice synergy of good camera, the right camera for you and the right lens choice and the right vision, bam, it can be really good. And for me, when I discovered the 24mm perspective, which by the way, most of this is shot with, something just went, I don't know why, I just went, that really fits how I'm trying to see. And I was shooting with a 50 and a 35mm a lot. And then getting that 24, I don't know why, just worked for me. Some people freak out when they try a 24. They go, "Oh, this is way too wide." But do you know Don McCullin, the war photographer and photojournalist? Incredible guy, photographer. He shoots most of his work with a 135, you know, which would seem nuts to me, but the results speak for themselves. So talking about the limitation thing, I shoot with a camera that it's a Leica monochrome, type 246, very catchy name. And it shoots only in black and white. It's a digital camera, shoots in black and white. And I use 3 or 4 M lenses, but the majority of the time I'm using the 24mm 1.4, Summilux spherical, another catchy name. And I find that pairing for me, I'm kind of like done. And it was a relief to find that, this body, this lens, I'm happy now. I can stop worrying about that and get off all the forums and just go out and shoot a bit more. So why do I shoot with a camera that, you know, most cameras can shoot in color, and then all cameras basically shoot in color, digital ones, and then you can convert into black and white. So what's the benefit of shooting a camera that is, you know, in just black and white natively, and it doesn't give you the option of color? And there are loads of technical reasons why it's good, like sharpness and low light performance and all these things that I won't really go into because it's quite tiring. But the main reason why it's great is because when you work with a tool that can't shoot in color, you don't have the choice. So you stop prioritizing it. You stop seeing it. You know, and like even with a film camera, you can put color film in if you wanted. You could, you know, it's in the back of my mind like, oh, well, maybe I should go try that portrait stuff that everyone goes on about. But with this, I felt it was quite liberating to have a tool that just didn't give me that option, and never would be able to. So if I'm out with that, I have to shoot in black and white. That's it. And for me, that was a really nice thing. And then walking around with just one lens, 24. On a camera that's like that, great. It makes a load of decisions for you already. So it's like, I'm going to be shooting wide angle and I'm going to be shooting black and white. Those are two great things that can be ticked off, and then I can just focus more on what I'm doing and less on what I'm going to do and having options. So I'm a big fan of prime lenses and not using zooms, because I feel like zooms are, sometimes I wish I had a zoom because I've missed shots trying to change lenses, but it's more the discipline. I think it takes a lot of discipline to shoot a zoom lens and walk into a scene and be like, this needs 35mm, not going, what am I going to do here, you know? But, you know, Steve McCurry uses a zoom. Some of my friends who are great photographers, they use zooms very well. I just personally like using primes and then zooming with my legs. So, I've covered quite a lot of stuff just then. There we go. There's one from a recent trip. So, exploring contrast has become a thing of mine that I've really enjoyed doing. Going further and further down the rabbit hole of weirdness. One of my things is that I like to present the world in a way that we don't necessarily see it every day. You know, like some photographers do the kind of, this is life as we see it, and they do it quite well, but I like to put the viewer in a space to where they couldn't see it, like that, you know? Perspective-wise, or subject-wise, or angle-wise, or light-wise, you know, because cameras, as good as these sensors are, they're nowhere near as developed as our eyes in terms of dynamic range. So our eyes could never see something like that. If you were seeing a scene like this, you'd have to go to the optician. But a camera, if you meter off that light up top or off the sunlight, the sensors can't do it. And I've exploited that to create this thing. So my style, I suppose, is a little bit of that, like kind of abstraction, but also trying to minimize the kind of clutter and busyness of a city and looking for scenes that are, I don't know, just, I try and make compositions that are easy to understand. As in, when you look at it, you get what I've done. You don't have to read a huge caption. I hate that. It's kind of happening to photography at the moment. And it's not some, a guy with a plant pot in a room and an anorak on. And then you read it and it's like, this is about sustainability and how we do it. And it's like, oh, come on. I'd rather see a really beautiful picture of something going on, like in a rainforest, I don't know, or something to tell me that story rather than some rubbish picture that doesn't need to exist. They say a photograph can, what's that say? A photo tells 1,000 words. But now, people are putting 1,000 words under their photos. And it's absolutely awful. So, I think it's important to not lean on words when it comes to visual art. Although it's important to be able to talk about what you're doing, but don't presume that someone is going to bother reading all your stuff, because they won't. Best piece of advice I've ever had is no one cares about your photos. Someone told me that. He was like, always keep that in your head. Don't take it too seriously. No one really cares as much as you. They never will. I was like, brutal, but apt. Seriously, it's a good piece of advice. People forget. There's another pigeon shot. So obviously, it took me time to be able to, this is an amalgamation of many techniques and skills that I've picked up over time. I didn't just see the pigeon and just take it. I've been trying to do pigeon shots for like a year beforehand kind of thing, and developed this weird thing, and it sounds weird, where I herd pigeons. I follow them around, and then I get them to where I want them. And so this pigeon was down the street, and I wanted it there. And I followed it, I went down the street, I got it there, and I moved back, and I stamped, and I took the picture. That's how that happened. And this was intended, the reflection, because I saw it landing, and I saw the reflection, and I do reflections all the time. But this was the bit where I saw it on my screen, and I did a little jig, because I was very happy. That picture is, for me, what kind of typifies street photography, because like, I could wait at the Oculus and take this again, probably. And that's the MetLife building near Grand Central. Well, not that you can tell. I could take that all day long. That one as well, But this, even if I had a very well-trained pigeon, I don't think I could do that again. So these are the shots I love, and you can never shoot these at will. They just happen every so often, and it's nice to have it. And it required so many things. Like, do you see the light has ended here? Right. So it was that thing in New York where the light bounces off the buildings, and you get like a spotlight on the street because it's reflected off like an open window or something. So I had this weird spotlight thing, and the rest of the street was just in shadow. And so it was like a nice little stage for Mr. Pigeon. And I took this in 2018, and it's my favourite picture I did in 2018. And people go, "What's your favourite picture?" And I was like, "Oh, it's this one of a pigeon." And they think, "Oh, so sad." Poor man. Poor man. And he thinks he's a professional. But, you know, so this required timing, foresight, you know, and that's an important thing. So like, if you want to know about how I shoot, I like for this scene, I see it first, and then I wait for my subject to enter. And the fisherman, not the hunter approach. So I drop my net and I wait for the big fish rather than walking around shooting randomly like I'm in a Western. You know, that you know, people think of street photography and they think of like, you know, like Bresson in his trench coat and his collar up and really cool with a cigarette probably, and it's not like that. It's mainly sitting there or crouching, or even worse, sitting like on the floor where everyone thinks you're mad and waiting for something. I find that has resulted in, you know, it took me like 10 minutes to creep up to this guy slowly. He was asleep. But it's about identifying the scene and then executing. I'm pretty sure there are, you know, very few of my pictures have happened spontaneously and are good, or like good enough for me to want to show them or publish them even. You know, but I still do it. I walk down the street and try and photograph it. Occasionally you get one, but mostly it's thought. And that's the point of all this, is kind of thinking about what you're doing a lot. I think I kind of became a photographer not by shooting, but by sitting there thinking a lot and looking at my work and thinking, you know, why am I doing this? Why do, you know, or like looking at a picture in a book and going, why do I like, you know, I love this picture, but why do I like it? And it's like, okay, if you break down the technique, it's like, okay, I like the fact that it's a weird perspective, or I like the the angle of the light, or I like, you know, the juxtaposition between these two elements. There's always a reason why you're drawn to something, whatever it is in life, and I've kind of deciphered what it was I liked and then started implementing that with the themes that I wanted to shoot. Does that make sense? So this is the Apple Store, the Oculus. Super wide angle lens, a 16mm Trialmar. That was another one where I waited for a long time. That was quite a spontaneous one. I saw her coming and then jumped on the floor. She must have been terrified. Okay, so this is the one. This is the one. Sitting there, like I mean, literally sitting on the street. It's quite, but it's got to be done sometimes. Someone chucked me $1. I mean it. Yeah. And then look back at me for the appreciative nod, you know, that they want. And I was sitting there with a, you know, $50,000 camera. Like, must have been weird. He I think he knew what it was. He was like, "This is weird." So yeah, you can see, like, I'm always trying to shoot from weird angles and perspectives. That's what I like. Stare, you know. Do you know where this is? Have you been to the Oculus? I mean, the Oculus is kind of a photographer's playground. There's so many things going on in there. And like, if there are loads of people, sometimes you can make a thing out of that. You know, so I've used the reflection to kind of double how many people there were. So I love just trying to decipher a scene and try and apply my own style to that. So, you know, I'll sit in a, it's like you, I don't know what the analogy is, but it's about, instead of just shooting, it's about just observing and then kind of thinking about it and then taking 1 or 2 pictures that are actually good, rather than, and like the point where the photo is a success is generally when you come up with it, think of the, you know, of the clever angle or the thing that someone else might not have seen, and because they're not thinking hard enough, is that kind of thing. And it's quite exciting when you find it. And that was taken yesterday. And that was taken yesterday. So you can see, right? Like there are links between this picture and this picture and this picture and this picture. It's like geometric, human-based, quite high contrast. You know, a recognizable scene, but not one that, photographed in a way that people think it's, well, it's maybe a slightly different look on how you'd look at a train driver or a train like that. And that's it. It's pretty simple. The idea is pretty simple, but it's just about going out there every day and doing it and repeating. That's the tricky bit. Yeah, that was somewhere in Germany. Okay, so all of those were part of the New York series. These are around the world. So this is in Hanoi. That was a cool place. I was so jet lagged though. That's another thing. You can't take photos if you're super jet lagged. I found that out. And I've just done this monster tour where I was going around like Asia, South America, and then Asia, and then North America, and then Europe. And by the time I got here, I was just producing the worst pictures I've ever seen. I was looking, I need to sleep for 2 days. So yeah, that was Cartagena in Colombia. That was a couple of weeks ago. No, 3 weeks ago. I need to plant some trees or something. I need to offset all this stuff I'm doing. It's not good. Someone said that to me once on Instagram. They're like, "Oh, it's great all this travelling you're doing. You thought about the environment. Oh God, can't think of everything." So it's the same idea as the one in the Oculus, really. You know, so I'm applying. So I like to limit myself in all these ways and look for certain elements, and then I let my environment dictate the variety in the work, rather than trying to do loads of crazy new things all the time. I just shoot in the same way, and then, you know, this is the same kind of technique as that shot with the window in New York. The reflect is just different place, so the picture is going to look different. Does that make sense? Similar shots, very similar. Almost the same composition as well, subject. And so this is using the, what's it called? Tatami. Thank you. Using that as, you know, leading lines. And the table. And this is the bench. This is in Korea. And this was an accident, getting the cup in. I didn't realise. But that's my favourite bit of the picture, the way the straw kind of follows the line of these structures. I like little things like that. But yeah, that was luck. This is near Pipeline, famous wave in Hawaii on the North Shore. Loads of people die there surfing. It's like, this is the off season, and the waves there get to like 30 feet, and it's ridiculous. If you haven't been, quite a cool thing to see. But Hawaii was like a nightmare for me. I mean, it's like green and blue and sunsets and tropical drinks and beaches, and that's it. So it was a real struggle for me, and I love that. You know, here I'm like a fish in water. You know, New York's like, it's great. You just sit on one subway platform for half an hour and probably get a picture I like. Whereas in Hawaii, I was really stressing out. But I managed to take, I like this one. But God, it was hard fought for. So again, geometric, people quite closely punched in on the subject. So I became very interested in how you could guide the viewer's eye to a subject without their face filling the frame. You know, because 50 mils are it's easy to take a portrait of someone and it be quite obvious what you're doing. But if their head is like 2% of the frame, or the eyes, you know, making it clear that it's that It's taken time to kind of go wider and wider and wider and still be able to focus the eye on the subject and all that stuff. Here's a little tip for developing your own series, and it's something that I did quite a lot of, and it's if you have 100 pictures a month that you've taken or you've edited, you go to in London it's called Snappy Snaps. It's a photography shop where you can make prints for 100 for $20, like little postcard size 6x4s or whatever. And then you put 100 a month in a shoebox, and then at the end of the year you have 1,200 pictures in this box, right? And then you get them out and you put them all out everywhere in your house, to the lament of your partner perhaps. And the reason this is important is because you can start to look at your pictures as at more than one at a time. So in a book you can only see 2 or 3 pictures on a page, and on a computer you have to like cycle through them like we're doing here. When you look at all your pictures like that and you just leave them there for like a week, you start to see trends in pictures that maybe were taken months apart that you can put them together and you can start making sets of images. So my series Metropolis, which is kind of this stuff, loneliness in the modern world, pretty easy subject to shoot these days, but quite an obvious choice. That was born out of doing this. So I had these negative space pictures like this, right? So the end of the frame is about here. And I had these pictures where 50% or 60% of the image was black, and I hadn't taken them consciously like that, but I put them together, and out of all those pictures that were there in the living room, I had these 5 together that looked like they belonged together on a wall. And I thought, and I pushed all the others aside, and I was like, right, I'm going to go out and I'm going to try and make 5 more of these, and then 5 more of these, and then 5 more of these, and then all of a sudden you have an exhibition. It was the kind of thing, but it's true, and that is how the series happened. And now, I didn't just start doing this kind of thing. It's like an evolutionary thing, like man climbing out of the primordial ooze. I started off with like these pretty average shots, and then honed it, and then because I was shooting exactly what I wanted to do, and I was being super selective, and then going like doubling down on being niche more and more and more, all of a sudden you end up doing something that people aren't really doing, because people copy this stuff quite a lot now, I see online, which is equal parts annoying and flattering, but it's kind of missing the point. It's like, you're never gonna, learning a guitar solo by Jimmy Page doesn't you can't write one necessarily like that. You have to go through the process of doing that to understand. Even if you learn the techniques, okay, he's done this, even if you understand it on that level, it's still hard to replicate like that. And then you just think, so if you go through the effort of copying someone that intensely, why not just do something of your own? It's the same kind of effort. And emulating is an important thing. Like everyone does it. I started doing that, but there's got to be a point where you start to think for yourself and stop just trying to copy, and stop, leaning on that and having your own ideas. And I'm not saying that all of my pictures are like super original, but some of them are my pictures, and I've got a small handful. Someone said rather morbidly to me, that's an obituary shot. If you pass away, they put it, this is what this artist did. He's like, they'd use that kind of picture to sum up, this was you. And it was a weird thing to think about. But it's weird when you think of like Cartier-Bresson, all the life he had and the places he went, boils down to like 10 images in our mind that are his, and it's that kind of thing. but they are his. You know, he wasn't copying. So these are portraits. But you see how if you have a target like that, if you have a direction to actually go in, it becomes a lot easier to ascertain whether you've got a good shot or whether you haven't got a good shot. Whereas if you're kind of directionless, it's very hard to say, I've achieved my goal, because if there's no goal, then it's very hard to know what the hell's going on. Does this make sense? I don't know, yeah? I'm getting some blank looks. But, so to summarize, the way I've developed the style is a lot of reflection on what I've already shot, not really listening to anyone's advice, just doing what I want, and wax on, wax off, Mr. Miyagi style, just shooting, 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 and then thinking, and then, you know. So, I mean, it sounds obvious, but it's something that's quite easily lost in street photography in particular. You know, food photographer, their direction is pretty obvious. It's going to be food. And portrait photographers, you know, portraits. Street photography, massively open to interpretation. So much you can do that it can become... But there's always more and more, you know, it's always... Within each genre, you can always refine it and become more specialized. And I found, just from, not that anyone here wants to be a, I don't know what, if we've got working photographers here or not, but whether you want to have a job as a photographer or whether you want to just improve your photography or whether you want to have an exhibition or whatever, the thought process is the same. And I accidentally transitioned into a career in photography by getting discovered for having a series. And that's how it started for me. I was just doing my Life on the Underground series, and an editor at Time Out found it on Flickr and emailed me, well no, messaged me on Flickr, because I had no website and I had no Instagram at that point, and he just said, really like your pictures on the Underground. We'd like to do an interview with you. And I've been shooting for like 8 months. And he didn't know that. And I certainly wasn't going to tell him that. And it's one of the questions is, you know, how long have you been working on this series? And I was like, enough. I've been working on it enough. He was like, okay? Like, yes, next question, please. And it kind of domino affected a little bit. So then after that feature went out, I got a call from a newspaper a national in London who said, we just seen your thing on the Underground, we've got an assignment we want a photographer for on the Underground. Will you come in and do it? So I was like, at my, you know, in a studio at the time, recording. It's like, yeah, sure, I'll be there. Oh God. And then I had to do this assignment, and it was a time restricted assignment as well, which is the most devilish, because it's like, you've got to do it, otherwise you look like a massive idiot. So I had to provide this thing in like 3 days, and it was portraits of people on the Underground listening to music, and then the caption of the picture being the song that they were listening to. So it's quite funny, like, you know, really grumpy looking man, like, and listening to Katy Perry Firework. And so it was like this, and they were like, you have to get 20 images on the Underground. Now, would you feel comfortable talking to someone on the subway, just randomly striking up a conversation? Probably not. And like, how would you feel if they had headphones in? Probably even less likely, because that's like a sign of like, leave me alone please, I'm enjoying my whatever music. And so I had to just be like, excuse me, excuse me. And I got told rude words that I shall not repeat now. Many rude words on the Underground. But I asked about 200 people and I got 15 pictures that were good enough. Anyway, and then that went out, and then that did really well. People found it really funny, and then I got another call from them, and then some architecture firm were like, oh, we really like your black and white pictures. Can you come and shoot a project for us? And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do that. And then bit by bit, things started to come together, and then just started doing a lot of news pieces, and my work was going out to loads of people. I didn't really have a direction then. I was shooting in black and white for the majority of it. And then next thing that happened was someone persuaded me to join Instagram, and then did that, and then with a couple of friends we founded something called Street Photography International, which has done really well, and that was a good thing. And got approached by agencies and tourism boards, and then all of a sudden it was like, that was it, I'm a photographer now, so I stopped doing music. So you see, it's a very gradual, like kind of 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of thing. And then, yeah, and that was it. But it was funny, one of my first proper assignments was at London Fashion Week, and I was there with a very famous fashion photographer, I think it's David Bailey, who's like, he's serious. And I didn't talk to him, but I saw him, and I was the other photographer, and I was like, no way, this is a joke. I've been taking pictures for a year. How did this happen? But I was using the photographer lingo already, you know, I've got this series I'm doing, you know, on the underground. It's really deep. And people would go, yeah. But fortunately, I went into doing a series immediately because of my background in music and writing albums and stuff. So you don't write a song without a point. You don't write an album that doesn't have a point. You know, so why would you take photos without a point? And I didn't realize that at the time, but it just made sense to me. And luckily, it was a good thing to do. So, you know, people talk about storytelling in photography, but they focus a lot on the technique, and then they try and focus on the storytelling. But I think it should be done as much as possible together. And actually, there's only a certain amount of camera technique you can learn, but the other side of it, you can go on forever. Cameras are pretty easy to use, despite a lot of photographers like to massively overinflate the difficulty of taking pictures. But you know, I've said this at workshops before. Like, if you put a 5-year-old kid in front of a violin, you know, they would never be able to make a tune, a melody. But if you put a 5-year-old in front of a camera and said, you know, you do this and you press this button, they'd be taking pictures really quick. So like, the tool itself isn't that hard, but yet there are no child prodigy photographers, you know, that I've heard of, because it requires a depth of knowledge and understanding to actually take a meaningful picture. Taking a sharp picture, anyone can do. But taking a picture, or taking a series of pictures that are interlinked, that's difficult. So I'd recommend just basically thinking about it as much as possible, and doing that thing with the mini prints and the shoebox, and seeing if you've got a series already. And then it's, I don't know, maybe if this sounds like really hard work and like, you know, bumming you out, the idea of doing this, then, you know, fair enough. Just do whatever it is that keeps you enjoying it. But for me, I enjoyed photography more than ever before when I started to get on a track of my own and was producing stuff that I felt personally attached to. You know, in a way of looking at the pictures of some of the photographers that I got into it, you know, and being like, "Ooh, this is so exciting." You know, it was that kind of thing. So, anyway, I guess it's time for a Q&A. Anyone want to do a Q&A? If it's just going to be one person asking a question, then... You... Okay.
It's working? Okay.
This thing on?
Thank you for sharing. I really enjoyed looking at your work.
Thanks.
Can you talk a little bit about your metering style? And you're using manual focus, focusing style.
Yeah.
You use zone focus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I use spot metering and I zone focus. I mean, I don't know if I can elaborate more on that, but it's often exposing for the highlights. So like this shot, looking for scenes that have very high naturally occurring contrast. So i.e. metering off that light, all of you guys, I wouldn't be able to see you guys. So it's that kind of thing, but place someone in the, or you know, have someone walk through in the right point and you'd get a cool shot. So metering is a very important part, but yeah, spot metering is what I use. The others are all just weird. do things I don't like. And what was the other question about the focusing? So zone focusing. Zone focusing is a thing that is kind of necessary on, well, it's only really possible on manual lenses because they've got this depth of field indicator. So the lens is telling you what distance the lens is focusing at. And then depending on the aperture you're on, it can tell you the depth of field, like how deep the plane of focus is. And I use it all the time. Autofocus for me is quite irritating. I don't like, as in, sometimes it would just be perfect. Like for this shot, this was a shot of a mannequin. It's not a real person, it's a mannequin. And some people go, oh, that's cheating, but it's not really. It could have been a person. I saw it. It's cool, I think. And it's quite funny, actually. I hope the person never watches this. But this lady in Los Angeles bought a print of it, big one. And she said, we organised it. It was like 6 feet by 4 feet, like a door. And then she sent me this email and she said, oh, here it is up in my house. Oh my God, I love it. And then it said, please tell me the story behind this mysterious man. And I was like, oh no, oh no. So I said, similar to the Time Out interview, I styled my, politicianed my way out of it. I said, isn't the mystery more important than knowing the story? Or something ridiculous, like that. And she went, you're absolutely right. I'm sorry for asking. And I was like, it would have ruined it if I'd been like, oh, yeah, there's a mannequin on Piccadilly Circus in London. Oh. So yeah, metering allowed that to look like that, if you see. So it was taken at night, so the only light that was on was the spotlight above. And if that had been a hat that wasn't white, it wouldn't have worked, if you see what I mean. Any other questions?
Hi, thank you again.
That's cool, man.
Beforehand, you said that you literally curate your photos before you even take them. So what I'm trying to understand is, are you going out to the street and you have, except for a vision, you have not a spot you're looking for, but some specific work or a shot you are looking to get before you even took it?
Nah,
Just so it'll be on your feed in a certain way?
Okay. So no, I didn't go out on this day going, cool, I want to make a replica of the Les Miserables scene at the end of the film, kind of thing. I just so happened to stumble across it, and France won the World Cup recently, and so the French were celebrating. I didn't plan for that. It's not that deep. I'm not walking around looking for a lady in black sunglasses. It's not like that kind of thing. It's more, there are lots of things that I don't shoot and I know I won't look for. So I keep myself, it's tough to be not blinkered, but open to seeing things. I'm just looking around for scenes that would work for me.
So how many shots are you taking? Let's say you go out on a session and 30 minutes, an hour out. How many shots are you looking to take? Because sometimes, at the beginning, for me, it was I took a couple of hundreds. And now I can, walk around for 3 hours and maybe take 20.
Yeah, I'm kind of more like that. But it all depends. It's to capture this, I had to take quite a lot of pictures. It wasn't just actually, it wasn't that many, it was 10. This one was a one-off, just a one shot. This was a couple of shots at a house party. I get triggered by things. Often it's the light, so I like backlight. I like some nice naturally occurring geometry. I always say that it's 4 things. I used to say it was 3 things. Now it's 4 things that make a great picture. And it's good subject, good environment, good light, and good perspective is the one I realise is also super important. So it's really rare to have all 4 of those things align in front of you. But when they do, I'll take the picture if I can. That make sense? Oh. Oh my goodness. The demon dog of Soho. Yeah, that thing nearly bit me. Nasty little rat dog. It was really sweet until the last moment. And then so I photograph dogs a lot, and I've done a whole project on dogs. Elliot Erwitt did one, and thought it was so brilliant. I thought I'd like to try and continue in that vein-ish. This one was almost took my hand. It tried. It's called Bluebell. Bluebell, very sweet. Any other questions?
Thank you very much again. You kind of spoke and mentioned the thought process and kind of observing and sitting for periods of time. How do you think about, or how do you balance maybe per se, your participation in life versus your observation and thinking about the scenes that you're capturing of life?
Yeah, I'm an observer. There's the whole thing. I've had it before where someone said to me, like, put down the camera and just like enjoy it. But I really enjoy it just by studying stuff. I get a great pleasure out of it. That's the thing. I'm very lucky because I really love it. And if I wasn't doing this as my job, I would be wishing I was doing this as my job. So it's good. So I don't see this as a chore, you know, like participation in life. I don't know. As a photographer, you have to engage with it. You know, you have to go where the pictures are. You can't just sit there and wait for something to come to you. So it's a mixture of both. You have to be able to, like I did this skydiving thing. I just photographed skydivers falling out of planes once with that. And that was really crazy. But it was the kind of thing that I wouldn't have ever done skydiving was it not for photography. So sometimes it leads me to do things that, yeah, I wouldn't do. And also it gives you an excuse to do things that I would never ever do either. I end up just doing weird stuff, you know, that you just think, why am I doing this? Why am I here? Like I went to North Korea recently, I thought, why am I here? Any other questions? Does that answer it? Yeah. Cool.
Amazing pictures.
Thank you.
Obviously, everybody can see that. Do you go out every day, every night, and come back with one of this level of photograph? How long would it take you to get this?
This one?
Yeah.
So subjective.
Can you expect in one night when you go out, are you going to get one of this level, or does it take you a couple nights?
I don't know. And to be honest, you have to live with a picture for a while before you know if it's good or not, really good or not. You know, I'm always hopeful that I take a good shot, but it's weird, like the way that people used to shoot with film, you know, you take the picture and you wouldn't see it. And you wouldn't see it for maybe a week or maybe even a month or maybe 6 months because you hadn't developed your film. Whereas with this, it's like take it, bam, process it, bam, post it, which is good. And it's a nice, I actually like that way of working. It's been good for me and it's like motivates me to go out and get new stuff. But it's not always a good idea. And you have to have a very good sense of your own style to be able to do that and not just keep putting out loads of average stuff. So yeah, the curation side, being pretty brutal on yourself is important. I don't know, I mean, I take a lot of pictures that aren't as good as that. I haven't taken a picture as good as this, you know, in a while, a couple of weeks maybe. Although I don't know. Actually, that's not true. I took the train drive one. I like the train drive one. The train drive one's not as good as that. Yeah. So I don't know. But some people don't like that picture. Some people would prefer that, maybe. As a, you know, it's a very personal taste thing. You know, and we might go, no way, you know. But, you know, some people hate pizza. I can't even imagine a world like that. but some people hate it. And so, you know, I don't know. It's, I mean, who was it? Ansel Adams said it's, if you take 12 relevant pictures in a year, you've done well. 12. And I go for one a month. That's my target, is to make one that is like, I could put in a book. Because, you know, like that one. That one I think I could put in a book. That one as well, and this one, and that one, and that one. That one. Maybe that one. I've done well. He's all right, man. But that one too. But you know, this is I don't know. It's a hard thing to answer, really, to be honest. But I just take pictures. I try and take the best pictures I can, and often it's not the environment that is causing me to not get pictures. It's my own head. You know, I think being clear-headed and not distracted, and you know, by life stuff is a big, important thing, and to try and focus on the photography. It's very hard to let photography take, you know, I know a lot of people feel like photography takes them away from feeling stressed, which is great, it's amazing. But it's even better if you're not stressed beforehand and you go out and you can think, rather than letting the process of just being outside and walking around relax you, you know, if you see what I mean. I don't know, without risk of sounding massively pretentious, but you know, you have to let yourself be totally blank and just see what is there, not what you want to be there, kind of thing. And then just really study it, and then take pictures of, I don't know, it sounds so stupid to say that, but yeah, just to, you know, you have all the technique stuff has to already be there, and you have to just let that work on autopilot and just study what's going on in front of you as closely as possible. If you're worrying about your friend's health or your job or your partner, or you need to go to the loo, or you're really hungry, all these things can be awfully distracting for photography. Like, you know, I have to have everything just right before I can go out and shoot, and then when I can, I'm in a good frame of mind, I'll do it. And by the way, I will shoot for like an hour and a half a day, maybe, but like properly. You know, if you're doing street photography properly or shooting portraits properly, it's exhausting. It's mentally like exhausting, and to do it for 8 hours at a good level of concentration or high intensity is unrealistic. But sometimes I get the best pictures, having said that, just walking around with a friend for a day and not thinking too hard about it. But most of the time I get them on my own in some weird place in the world, and where I've just gotten over my jet lag and I can focus. So this picture took me 4 days, three days of waiting. Not consecutively, I didn't sleep there, but I returned for 3 days in a row, and I was in Berlin for 4 days during Loba, and I thought I was going mad. Although I've got the whole city of Berlin, and here I am at this memorial because I believe in a shot enough to sit there and wait for it, and I got it. I was really happy with it, but it took so long to happen. Yeah, and it's that kind of thing where you're trying to control your brain, being like, what are you doing, Alan? You're an idiot. What are you doing here? But, you know, just sitting there and patiently waiting and watching. It's actually, someone told me that it's meditative, and they said that I must be quite good at meditating. I thought, that's rubbish. I would never do yoga or any of that. But they were like, you can sit in a place for 3 hours and just look at something, and you're happy doing that. I was like, yeah. And they're like, that's cool. I was like, I don't know. But I never used to be able to do that for street photography. Any other questions?
I have a question. I was going to ask you how long you go out and shoot every day, but you just said 1.5 hour. But how about the editing? Like, do you
Editing.
do you go back that day and look at your picture immediately and edit it? And how much time, like proportionally, would you do?
I don't like editing for ages. I feel like if you've got the image right, it should be really quick. So if you're sitting there messing around, said the wrong word there, messing around with an edit for an hour, not so good. I think something's gone wrong at the time of shooting it, It's like cooking. If you need to season it and re-season it, something's gone wrong. You've probably done something wrong, or you've got the wrong materials. So I don't know. I'll look through my images. I look through every image. If I take 100 images in a day, I look at every image. A lot of people skip over all their images and they go for the one that they think was good, or they take 800 images because they're doing the spray and pray thing, and they don't look at them because who wants to look through 800 images? So yeah, I will spend maybe an hour in the evening editing. Depends. And like that hour and a half thing is, I'll often walk around with my camera on my shoulder and I'm not walking around like looking. I just kind of go around like a tourist almost. And then when I see something, then I engage with it. So I might be doing an hour and a half of photography, but it's like broken up over a day, where I'm just walking along and having a beer, and then stopping for half an hour and really focusing, and then taking an hour off or whatever. I don't know. It all depends. And I mean, for example, I was in Nepal for one day at one point. One day. I was like, I'm not going to be back here for a while. I'm going to shoot all day and all night, and I did. So it depends on the situation as well, and how tired I am. Oh, microphone. Hello.
Hi. Sorry, I missed the first part. I wanted to get here, but
It's okay.
many of your shots involve the subjects by themselves, single people, and
Yeah.
I don't know if that's already been asked. Is it difficult to isolate them in these urban environments like that?
Good question. Yes, I suppose. Although I'm kind of I do it a lot now, so I find it a lot easier than before. But it's not so much necessarily shooting one person at a time. It's more just making the subject clear. So in this, the subject's meant to be the two who look like they're waving at each other. I think it's quite obvious. I mean, this almost didn't happen because there were people walking by, and I wanted just one person. And also the light was closing. Oh, I cannot tell you how stressed I was. I was saying foul things. I was shouting at people and at myself, and looking like a mad professor. But I got the picture, which was important. But I'm always looking for scenes that, are subject and environment and not a lot of clutter. Oh, everyone likes that one. Yeah. I mean, it's a thing you have to practice a lot. But, you can't do it on... Actually, you can do it anywhere. If you've got the right light as well, if you know how to crush down shadows, and you can hide people in shadows and stuff if you time things right. I think there's a question over here.
Well, you mentioned Irwin, and I definitely see the influence here in this shot.
Yeah.
And Cartier-Bresson, but I was wondering who else you greatly admire in terms of our great street photographers.
Okay, good question. Does anyone know Fan Ho? Yeah, he's starting to become known now, which is outrageous that he's not already. He's massive in Asia. But Fan Ho, someone put me onto his work while I was shooting my Metropolis series, and I was like, this guy's kind of done a bit like this, but he did it 60 years ago. I was really annoyed. But who else? Weirdly, I get influenced by other things other than street photography. I really like for example, I went to a Giacometti exhibition, the sculptor guy, and that changed my photography almost instantly. I was like, ooh, this was a while ago, and I was quite struck by how human yet unhuman his work looked, and it just made me think. Possibly for the first time, I thought, wouldn't it be cool to present things really weird and warped and different, but still identifiably based in, you know, society today? Sounds really weird, but so, you know, that was a bigger thing for me than looking at a lot of photographers' work, for example. Yeah. I don't know, other photographers. I really like Steve McCurry. Steve McCurry's obviously Steve McCurry. Who else? Robert Frank. Indeed. Yeah, there are. I don't know. I can't think of them all right now, but there are quite a few photographers who I've got their books, and I spend a lot of time looking at other people's work on Instagram, just because it forces you to do so. And yeah, so it's interesting seeing what people are doing today as well. But to be honest, I spend most of my time egotistically looking through my own work and trying to figure out how to improve through that, rather than looking at other people's. Like, I think it gets you to a certain point, unless you meet the person, the photographer, and you really get to know them and understand why they do things. There's only so far looking at a book can take you. Yeah. Who else? Oh, Sebastian, did I say Salgado? Yeah, Salgado. I mean, Salgado is ridiculous.
I do have a question.
Hello.
Hello. You said you started with commissions and assignments.
Yeah.
I ask this all the photographers because of Cartier-Bresson, myself. Do you feel more motivated when you're doing for an assignment, a project, or you know somebody is going to see it and waiting for that, than just do by yourself?
Yeah, no one's ever asked me that. That's a good question. It's a very different feeling. When I'm shooting on my own, it's when I'm happiest. But I try and produce work that like some of these have been commissions, and I hope you wouldn't be able to tell which ones they are, because I like to, as part of my spiel, is that I offer people the same thing as my real art, but for your brand. You know, I don't have like, okay, I'm in commercial mode, I'm shooting this, and now I'll go back to shooting my streak. But it's just a different pressure, I suppose. Although this is the thing, and why it's so important to have your own style, is that I'm now getting booked for things, unlike in my music days where it was like Alan the bicycle, you know, the town bike, the music. Everyone just give him whatever, he'll do it. With this now, when I get booked for something, it's not, they can't just be like, here's your brief, do that. If they book me, it's because they want this look, and I know about this look more than them, and so they have to respect me and not be difficult. And it's wonderful going in on that, and then you get brought in at the actual creative, the storyboarding part of a campaign, because they want you to help influence it, and you know they need your input. They can't just make something, and because they realise they have no idea what, you know, how these pictures are made, so they need your help. But they want this look, but they don't know how, you know. So do you see what I mean? It's like it's important to have a style if you want to actually, and that's what that guy meant when he said brands want to work with artists, not with commercial photographers, because if you know, they want to be like, oh, Mr. Pitt, you know, Brad, we got this photographer in today, he's, you know, she's amazing, she does just these pictures with red canvas, and you know, we're going to do this kind of picture with you today, and it's going to be amazing. That's what what they want to hear, rather than, you know, here's a guy who's got a great day rate, you know, very good at different disciplines, and he uses Nikon cameras, or like, you know, they don't care about that stuff. They want like someone who's got a style, someone who's had features saying that they're an artist, all that kind of stuff. And then once you get to that stage, assignments are actually not that pressured in the same way, because you're not doing something for them, you're just doing what you do for them. You're not trying to reimagine yourself and get in, you know, like in music I was asked quite a lot, like, this brand wants you to clone this Coldplay song, but make it a legal version. So you copy it, but you change the key, you change a couple of chords around. People do it all the time because they can't afford Coldplay, who might be £400,000 for a license, whereas I was £4,000 or £400 at certain points, you know. And that's quite kind of soul destroying. And then that's a lot of pressure, because now you are having to recreate this Coldplay song. That's much more hard. That's much harder than, you know, just doing your own thing. So to be honest, shooting for a client or shooting for myself is pretty much the same. It's just the things that are hard is like if they want high contrast stuff like this and then there's no sun. There's not much I can do about that. I can't control the weather as much as I wish I could.
I'd like to know your opinion about this new phase about protest in the arts. And I like your work so much because you don't have to show any protest. It's just beauty or spectacular lights, like you said.
What's the thing? My series has a point to it, but like I think I said before, like I don't like pictures that require words to have to be understood. I like them to be valid in and of themselves. So it's like a collection of individuals, like an ideal football team. Lots of great players, but who also work really well together as a team, which never really happens in soccer. But yeah, for me, like the aesthetic is super important, and it's enough to make pictures that are just nice looking, you know, things that are satisfying to look at. That's okay. As someone said to me once, this painful person, I said that properly, this horrible person said to me, you know, what's the point in what you're doing? Like, you're just floating around taking pictures of people, just art pictures. You know, there are people dying or in refugee camps. You know, why aren't you doing that? And this person works in marketing for some like bank. I was like, screw you, you know, ridiculous thing to say. It's like saying that every writer has to be writing about war, or saying that every, you know, it's just ridiculous. It's just nuts thing to say. So, you know, there are some people who are very opinionated with that. I just like to take pictures like this. Like Bresson did it as well. Bresson said something really horrible about Ansel Adams. He said, while I'm out here photographing, I think he was photographing like some famine somewhere. He said, I'm out here telling real human stories whilst Ansel's in the trees photographing rocks, right? But Ansel Adams' work was like eventually led to protecting the Yosemite Park, which is probably an achievement far greater than anything Bresson did in real terms. You know, so I just think people should just do what they want and just shoot. But you know, I think photojournalism is a really noble endeavour. It's really badly paid, which means that the good photographers don't want to do it. To be honest, you know, it's often, photojournalists are often trust fund kids who can float around and just go to, oh, I'm in Namibia photographing, you know, it's so terrible. You know, they're normally like that. Often, these days, I see it so much, it's really annoying. Whereas, you know, because you can't live off photojournalism anymore, unless you're a staffer. And those are like disappearing at a rate of knots as well, because everyone's just using stock photography. So yeah, and I recognise this because I was doing photojournalism and I was working in, I've done that kind of work before. Like I've covered stuff in Africa and I was doing that. and I just thought, this is wonderful and really interesting, and I'm really enjoying it, but it's, you know, I've got a mortgage, you know? And weirdly, doing this has been a lot better. And so I thought I need to find a way to, you know, as much as I'd love to do photojournalism, all the, you know, regularly, and it's just not worth it in that sense. And also, it doesn't make a bloody difference. Unfortunately, as we can see, the news and real stories seem to count for not much these days. That's a depressing way to end it. I can't end it like that. Any other questions? You don't want to be going home thinking, oh, I wish I'd asked that question. No? Oh, yeah? Sort of question?
So what I usually... Okay. What I usually do is I see a subject that I like and I follow them for a bit until they walk into a place that I can bear to photograph them. And I worry about asking for permission or them noticing that I'm following them.
Yeah.
What to do about that. I feel like I'm pretty kidnappable and I don't want people to get like mad at me. You know?
Yeah, sure. They'd much rather you followed them around than me, though. Hello, English.
I get nervous and sometimes I'll just like shoot and I'll look away and act like I'm photographing something else.
Oh yeah, I do that all the
Then
time.
I look at it later and I'm like, ooh, they were mad.
Oh, okay, so...
How do you avoid conflict, I guess, is my question.
Good question. One, your intent and your energy level, as in the vibe you're putting out, is an important one. If you're nervous, people can tell. And nothing looks more suspicious than a nervous person walking around like, ooh. You know, if you, I've seen it before. Like I've seen some street photographers who just, like Bruce Gilden. I've seen him working before. Sometimes he gets it wrong and people get angry. But I've seen him just go up to people and he's just like, hi, and then to walk off, and they're like, and they, you know, and
out with his flash.
yeah, and he flashes them, and most of the time.
He's out there. He's a street predator.
He is. But people don't. But he's alive. I mean, the way I shoot, I like to not disturb my subjects, and I like you. You know, the idea of someone getting upset because of what I'm doing is like the worst. So I tend to shoot from the hip. Hence the zone focusing thing. So I've got my distances here, and I've learned, I've actually practiced a lot how to accurately shoot from the hip, so that it's not just guessing. And the way I do that is by using the same lens for like ages, so that you can start to pre-visualize the frame at different distances, then how to hold it, you know, straight, and take accurate pictures, kind of thing. So that was one element. But you know, I don't do it because I'm frightened of someone shouting at me, because I don't really care that much. I mean, I don't care about being shouted at. I just feel bad afterwards for them being angry. But I like to be discreet because, let's find a picture. That was weirdly, so I'm taller than these guys who are either side of the frame. This was shot like this, like bam, a really quick shot, and then I moved on. I reckon if I had leant in and gone like this, her expression would have changed instantly. She would have been like, or maybe smiled. Some people smile sometimes, which is weird. But so I do it to preserve the expression that triggered me to want to shoot the scene, and it gets you out of a lot of weird situations. But you know, I've come up with little tricks as well, ways to get around being seen. Wearing really discreet clothing helps a lot. I keep my camera bag. I'll show you. So I've got my camera bag here. I wear it like this, and a lot of the time it's just like that. I'm walking around, and I can just rock up and just be like, and there it is. It's in focus. It's great subject, of course. you know, and a lot of photographers would have to be like, hang on. You know, and then of course they're annoyed. And then there was simple, but that thing about not feeling like you're doing something wrong. If you're just like happy and confident, or like just tell yourself that you are when you're doing it, people will suspect things a lot less. And then the other thing is being totally willing to speak to them. And another tip, carry some business cards that have your name on it, and then photographer. And then, you know, that replaces the word pervert in their mind. When they, you know, they go, what are you doing? And you go, oh, I'm a street photographer. And they go, what the hell's street photography? And you go, oh, let me tell you about it. Here's my card. You know, I'd love to send you the picture I just took. I'm doing a photo series on the most interesting people in New York. And I feel that you typify this city because you just look like you've been here for it. And then if you have the right patter, people go, well, yeah, I have lived here for 20 years. You know, my grandfather used to be on that street. And you can turn things around. I've never been really badly shouted at before. One guy chased me once, that's because he was asleep, and he was probably hungover, and it was lunch, and he shouldn't have been asleep or hungover. And and he must have just been angry, and then just chased me. But you know, as long as you treat people with respect and you don't photograph them too many times, it's cool. You know what? Oh, and here's a good line. If people get angry, you say, you know, we've got CCTV everywhere. You know, you're not complaining about that kind of thing. Or like, you know, we've been captured all day anyway. Might as well be one beautiful picture. Don't hit me. But yeah, the business card thing is cool, and then having a thing that you can say. So if you want to approach a stranger and ask them to shoot them before, you know, before the fact rather than after, or like after getting noticed, just ask them. Be sweet about it, and people, you'll find even New Yorkers will be open to it. I did a thing when I was scared of people at the beginning, and I think anyone who isn't, you know, isn't respecting people enough, but you get over that. And I did this thing where I set a project where I would not photograph, I would talk to 10 strangers a day for 3 months. And I did that. And it was really weird, but it was cool. And I learned that most people want to be talked to, and they're very happy with that. And I spoke to this old guy who used to live in Jamaica, and he moved to London like 30 years ago, and he was sitting on the DLR line, and I just sat down next to him, and I was doing this thing, and I just said, good morning. And he looked at me like, and he said, I've been here all this time, no one's ever spoken to me on the tube, on the underground. And I said, well, let's have a conversation. And then we had a lovely conversation. I found out about his wife, who sounds lovely, and about his job. And I told him about street photography. And then I took a picture of him at the end of it. And it was a really nice thing. And then, you know, because we've all got this face that we put on when we're on public transport, which is like, right? All of you would look pretty hostile, myself included, on the train. And then it took me a few goes of just talking to people, and then, you know, you think, oh, is this person angry or are they upset? And they look like they're miserable, and then you say hi, and then they go, oh, hello, and then they're just like any one of us. They're just people, you know. And then so I just started getting over it, and now I can shoot. You know, I don't mind. Once you resign the fact that if you don't mind someone catching you, then it makes it it's fun. But you have to have this thing, this spiel that you can give. But mine was true. You know, I was shooting people on the underground, and the underground is a very advanced area to shoot because you know it's a very private thing. Public transit. You know, you're on your own, traveling somewhere. You just want to be on your own. You know, so I wouldn't recommend that. Don't go on the subway and do it. But maybe somewhere like. Somewhere where cameras are always out anyway, so like maybe Times Square, you know, where everyone's photographing anyway. A camera being there isn't weird, people will just be open to it. And believe me, people, especially younger people, they just want to be photographed anyway because that's what they do, selfie themselves all the time anyway. And yeah, if you've got your Instagram, you can show them your work or show them other pictures. Yeah, that's it. But just do it bit by bit. And that's it, I suppose. But yeah, just don't be afraid.
What you do with like the camera being low, I don't think anyone ever notices. Sorry. Most people don't notice. I have had one person notice, and it might have been because I photographed him before and he wasn't happy about it that time, and I found him like a year later and was interested again. I feel that fear stops me from taking all of the pictures that I want to take, which is really a shame.
Sure.
Yeah. So just.
No, I agree. It is a shame. Like I said, one of the hardest things and one of the most necessary things for shooting street is having a clear mind so that you can actually see the stuff. And being in fear is a pretty massive obstacle to that. So I agree. Like, it's something that you need to get to just look at and get over. But I had this thing, yeah, where I was always shooting the back of people's heads. And then one day I was like, I've had enough of this. I want to shoot the front of someone's face. You know, I've had enough. And I just did it. I was so frustrated. And I just went up to someone and went, bam! And then they carried on walking. And I was like, oh, nothing happened. Oh, they didn't care. You know, that was it. I was like, oh, all right. But yeah, the worst case scenario, someone does say something, you're already prepared for that, and then you whap them with the business card. That's my technique anyway. What do you think? Is it too late to ask for any online questions? Yeah. Are there any? Oh, I don't know. Or maybe it's...
There's one person asking if you use the 28mm wide angle.
Yeah? Yes. Yes, internet. I have. But I don't like it as much as 24. 24 for me is that little bit different. And it's weird, like the distortion is, 24 is as wide as you can go, where it still looks natural. So like, if this picture could have been taken with the 35, as in if I told you this was a 35mm lens, you probably would believe it. You wouldn't be like, no way. But it was a tight tunnel, and I needed the 24 to get that shot. Now 21 and lower, it starts to look all warped and a bit weird. But I personally find 28mm is the same as the iPhone. The iPhone is a 28mm. Now this is for a lot of people, particularly those who, you know, start photography on their phones and then want to get more serious and they get 28mm. That's great. But for me, I don't know, there's just something about it it's not as interesting as 24, the way it looks. So I would rather use a 35 than a 28, and even those are quite similar.
And then another question is just going over your post-production work, but you answered that already.
Okay. I call that lunch. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming. Thank you.